I think one of the things that happens is that we are introduced to a new technology and we think the marketing is science. And the marketing's marketing. Hopefully it's based on science and isn't exaggerating the science or picking certain patient population experiences. And so it's so important to understand the data and then the real life data as well. And do they mirror each other? And I'd say with Vivity, my experience has been that it really did mirror it, and that's been really reassuring. And we've certainly had experiences where that wasn't the case.
So I'd like to take a bit of a deeper dive into Vivity itself in terms of how the lens works, what are some of the properties of the lens, and then get into a little bit more of the discussion of how it is that you recommend this. What is it that you tell your patients? What are the expectations? So Rob, I'll kick it off with you, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this non-diffractive X-wave type of technology that is discussed with regard to Vivity, and give us a little bit of insights on what that really means and how that really works.
So from a product development point of view, we definitely recognized an opportunity for an offering in the presbyopia correcting space that is complementary to other existing multifocal IOL approaches, including PanOptix as a good example. And in order to realize that opportunity, one of the design choices that we made very, very early on was that we had to have a complementary offering that is fundamentally based on a different optical principle than diffractive technology or light splitting. And that's what X-wave technology is. So X-wave technology works not by splitting light like diffractive technologies, but by what we call wavefront shaping. And the ultimate result of wavefront shaping, which is delivered by these couple of surface elements, is that light from distance and light from intermediate is brought into focus at the retina with the benefit of very good intermediate vision.
Great. I think the interesting thing, Robin, I don't know whether you'd agree with this, but I mean, from the clinical trials that then followed, this kind of sort of revolutionary change in the optics of how we design the optic for this particular purpose, was the whole sort of near portion of the visual range. And while, again, that wasn't necessarily the focus or the main purpose for the design change, one of the things that surprised me was really the amount of near vision that many patients do in fact get. Obviously not the same as a diffractive lens like a PanOptix does, but surprisingly more than I would have thought.
Yeah, and as you know, we characterize that as functional near vision, and I think it's from a product design point of view, it's fundamentally a consequence of the fact that when we set out to design this product, we were anchored to the ANSI standards for what makes an extended depth of focus lens. And in order to meet those criteria, we were driven to several different things, but one of those things is that we should extend the depth of focus at intermediate by a certain quantifiable amount, at least half a diopter, and in doing that, we're pushing visual acuity out into the near range as well.
Yeah, and now Morgan, sort of bringing it now from the bench to the clinician. What have been your experiences with it? What has surprised you perhaps with this lens and things that it can do, and essentially how are you using this lens in your practice? Who are you recommending it to? How did you, did you start kind of slowly, especially for those people who don't have a lot of experience with it? What would be your recommendations and your suggestions?
So I first got my hands on this lens, I believe it was late 2019, and I was so excited to get to use it for the first time. I wanted to provide my patients with more than just distance, and so Vivity really provided that for me. And so when I started using Vivity, I would encourage anyone to first use it in very normal eyes. Get to know the lens, use it in normal eyes. But the way I like to use it is when a patient walks in my clinic, all right, and they have a cataract and they're interested in a new lens and they do have a normal eye, I typically talk to them about PanOptix first, continuous range of vision lens until proven otherwise. If a patient is concerned about some aspect of that technology, or they maybe have a mild ERM, perhaps glaucoma, a little dry eye, that's where I think Vivity really, really shines, because it is a non-diffractive lens. And so we're not going to get all of the ring effect and halos and that we see in other EDOF technologies. Now, which patients would I recommend Vivity to? When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, really it's patients who I don't think are a good candidate for PanOptix. Now, for me, that happened to be my mother-in-law. And so my mother-in-law has bilateral Vivity lenses. She drives at night. She definitely has functional near vision. And I love my mother-in-law. So whenever I talk to other patients and tell people that I put in my mother-in-law, that's the first thing they ask me. But yes, I have a phenomenal relationship and love my mother-in-law. And I would do it again. I would do it again. And I don't take that decision lightly when you're talking about a family member. I believe in that technology. I think it works, and I think that it is probably one of the most balanced in terms of what you get for what you give up.